one of you guys has been in this class before?
I have.
You have?
All of us.
Yeah? So,
Oh,
We
have you
haven't,
guys ever
Sorry,
heard
I
me
thought-
talk?
we haven't
No,
been in the
no.
shadowing
No.
class
Yeah, no,
before.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
remember, yeah, okay. Alright, so, Mr. Stallworth, do you want kind of the overview of what we're doing today?
Yeah, what we're going to do, the purpose of this discussion, if you will, is really to, again, try to get you in a mindset of when you're out in a clinical situation. I may or may not be with you, but because of the society that we live in, I can't promise you somebody's not going to show up with a gun and start shooting. So one of the things I decided to do at a very early point in this program is to reach out to Officer Warren and just say, hey, let's have a conversation with these students and get them into a place where at least they're not freaking out in the event somebody shows up with a gun. And Officer Woolen has done a great job over the course of the 7 times that he's been in this classroom. Thank you very much for
Has
that.
it been that many?
Yeah. In really trying to get you guys in a place where you can handle the adversity and at least not let your lizard brain take over. Does that make sense? So I'm going to turn it over to you and let you kind of go wherever it is that you want to go.
Yeah, so, I guess first of all, have any of you been, and you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but have any of you guys ever been in a situation or someplace where, example, last week, the Crown Center shooting that just happened? Have you guys ever been in a situation like that where it's stressful and there may be rounds flying through the air? Anybody? Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. Yeah, knock wood. And so, just like what Mr. Stallsberg says, we just, if you watch the news, like I think it was September, in Kansas City, Missouri metro area, there was a football game, and what happens, but a couple people show up, and they start cranking rounds off right toward the end of the game, and if you saw any of the videos, it was hysteria. There were people running everywhere. Nobody really knew what to do. But I like this presentation here because typically, I don't know if you still have them do it, but everybody knows that when you're at either the doctor's office or at a football game or something like that, and you need help from law enforcement, you see somebody in a uniform. Well, if you guys are out at sporting events then there's times that you guys are going to be wearing what would be pretty similar to what a uniform would be. What do they usually wear?
They're in normally a royal blue polo and khaki pants.
Okay, so typically that's discernible from, I'm going to use like what you were talking about. You guys are going to be dressed up. People are going to can look toward you for guidance because you're going to have the uniform on that you're going to be wearing. So again, knock wood that we don't ever have it to face anything like this, but we want you to be prepared just in case it does happen. What do you think were some of the things that even at the Crown Center shooting, we're going through those visitors, those bystanders' minds when they started hearing those shots?
Where are they coming from?
Run.
And I'm gonna die.
They're gonna die. Somebody else said run.
I just said where they're coming from, where the shot's coming from.
Okay. So typically when you recognize, have you heard gunshots before? Everybody here knows what a gun sounds like. When you hear gunshots, then are there ways that you can respond as you run? Like everybody says, well, run, run, run. Well, are there different ways that you can do it to increase the chance of survival? You're shaking your head, yes. What thoughts?
I think so. I think just having like a designated area that you should go, like, I don't know, maybe like a basement or something, or like somewhere where you know is like safe, like a safe place.
Okay, good. I like the thinking.
Running in zigzags.
Go ahead, what?
Running in zigzags.
Okay, what do you mean by that? All right, so let's just take the example of, let's say that, where do you go to school again?
South.
You go south. Okay. So let's say that you're helping out at a football game. We're not gonna say it's at Wyandotte, the shooting's at Wyandotte, let's just say it's at Shawnee Mission South, and you're helping out with the football game. Typically, what are your duties when you're at a football game? When you've got your polo on and your khakis on, what are your responsibilities?
Stay with athletic trainer.
Okay.
Look out for injuries.
Okay. Help however you can, give support to that. Okay, right on. So, right in the middle of your duties, you hear rounds going off at the, let's say the west entrance. You know which side the west entrance is? Okay. Out at South Stadium, if you're on the football field and you're looking toward Shawnee Mission South, the actual school itself, that's actually looking east. There's two entrances at the people come in gates. One's on the west side, one's on the east side. So you hear rounds, you're out on the field, and you hear rounds that are going off what would be around the west gate. What's gonna be your response? I mean, I heard you say run, and then you said zigzags. That is a correct answer to why do you do that?
Just so, let's say you're shooting in a crowd, you're less likely to hit you.
Okay. Anybody hunt in here? No. Typically, like birds, like doves, versus geese. Doves fly in a pattern like this, and they're hard to hit because they're zigzagging. Ducks or geese, they typically fly in a straight line, and they're easier to hit. If you watch that shooting at that Wyandotte Schlegel football game, you'll see that some of the people don't even run. They just lay down on the football field. Why is that the wrong thing to do? To just lay down on the football field?
I mean, you're just a sitting duck at that point, kind of thing.
Yeah, if you remember in Vegas years ago, there was a shooter that was up in a hotel, up on like the 12th floor of this hotel, and there was a concert that was going on down below. And so this guy, what he was doing was he had for days he had been building up rifles and ammunition and stuff like that. And that's what he was looking for, those people that weren't moving, that were just sitting there. And that's what he was targeting, was those people that were moving. You gotta get in your mind as you either role play or think through this stuff that freezing is not an option.
Yeah.
Just like taking a second going, what the heck is going on? That's one thing, but just laying down there and being an open target cannot happen. It doesn't do any good for you, nor does it do any good for the opportunity or possibility for you to help out later on, because you're basically taken out of the equation because you're a sitting duck. When you say zigzag running, absolutely. So as you zigzag run, as your tough target, what are you running for or toward?
Shelter, a gate, just a way to get out and behind like cover. I feel like that's probably what I would do.
Okay.
say it was like at the west end and south, and
Yep.
it was like over on the east side, I would just like run behind like the stands probably.
Okay, so the next question becomes, is there a difference between cover and concealment?
Like
I feel like,
hiding
yeah.
or being like blocked from bullets.
Yeah, so behind this would be cover
Yeah.
or concealment.
That would be
You're concealing, you're hiding yourself, but would this stop around? No. Okay, so the next question becomes, what if you just stood behind this wall right here? Would you be concealed? Yes, you'd be hidden, but is this wall right here gonna stop around from going through? No, because if you know anything, this right here is thin, probably 3/4 sheetrock, and it's thin. It may slow or make a round, but this is not gonna stop around. Example: if there was a shooter outside this window, outside the window over here, would this be able to stop around? Yeah, absolutely. So that's both cover and concealment, because it's going to stop around, and that's why when the new "what do we do for the school district" came out, then you basically, there's three things: lockdown, code red, and evacuate. Lockdown means that that there's a threat outside the building. Bank robber just held up a bank, is driving in the car and bails out, and then may come out to, where do you go to school?
West.
You go west, bails out and is somewhere out on foot outside of West. So Mr. Lowe may get on the PA, on the radio, and say, hey, we're in lockdown. And so lockdown is all the doors and the doors are locked. Teaching can continue, but nobody comes in and out of the building. It's both West, and where do you go to school?
West as well.
You go to West too? West, and I'm all the time in East and South, and where are you at?
West.
You're at West, okay. So West at 740 is supposed to be in restricted access, meaning every one of the perimeter doors, including the receiving dock and all that kind of stuff, is supposed to be locked down. And there's only supposed to be one entrance, and that's where you guys go in and check in and out. That's the way it's supposed to be. Okay, so back lockdown, continue to teach, and then wait for further instructions. Doors locked. Okay, what's code red mean? So we've done lockdown.
Put in the building.
Could be an active shooter inside the building. And then I say this because it goes straight from what we're talking about with cover and concealment. With lockdown, what are we supposed to do? Doors shut means that there's an active shooter in the building. Doors are shut and locked, barricaded. The blinds on the windows are supposed to be left open so that the police can see in. But we, as the users inside the room, students, are supposed to get to a place where you've got as much cover and concealment as you can get. So in here, if the shooter's out there and they're shooting in, then we're going behind that rock. We're going behind that rock wall to stop bullets. If this door's locked and you guys are barricaded, have you guys ever talked about how how to lock that door.
Mhm.
Barricade it.
Yep.
Take, not just barricade it, but also take it like a belt.
Mhm.
Put it across the, yeah,
I've talked about it, not with this group, but it's been talked about in the past.
good.
And in fact, there's a case of athletic tape in the closet,
Mhm.
so we've got weapons as well, should we need to.
Good.
So
Good, so, this whole building, and then cell phones are supposed to be silenced, and, lights are supposed to be off. And then it's supposed to get to a place that, and we have never seen in all the surveys, when there's actually been barricaded in the room, and an active shooter, that the active shooters have actually breached through the barricaded doors and gotten people. That's why it's so important if it gets to go red, to lock down, not lock down, but to barricade and get everything locked as secure as possible. Yep. And then the third is what we're talking about. You're in open, somewhere open, and you've got to evacuate. So at south, give me some ideas if you're on the sideline where you can go to get both cover and concealment.
And then the bleachers, the concrete posts on the bleachers.
Yeah, you could do that if you're on the, that would be the south side of the field. Then there's the equipment building that's out there. On the north side of the field, if you can get bathrooms to be able to lock that down. Yeah. Okay. So that's what you're doing, at least at the onside, getting cover and concealment, getting yourself safely zigzagging. You're not just staying in one place.
Officer Woolen, real quick.
Yeah.
Quick question for you, and if this is too far inside baseball, blow the question off and move on.
Yeah.
But isn't it an administrator that makes the decision to lock us down, or is it you guys that make that decision, or is it a combination of both?
It's typically a combination of both. Like, example, we've usually got our radios on all the time, and we're monitoring stuff that's going on. Let's see, at West, you've got Wayne Scott that works for OP, and then you've also got a school district guy, Carmody, that's there too, and both those guys usually monitor what's going on. If something happens around the building in Overland Park, I don't know, auto burglars that bailed or a bank or whatever it might be, then typically the officers will go to the admin, and then the admin, based on those facts and circumstances, will make the call. But I mean, you guys know, well, you guys might not know, there's lots of times that there's little or very few admin that are available
After school?
There you go. A good example of that is Blue Valley Northwest. What happened to Blue Valley Northwest? Yep. Yeah. And if it's during the school day, then we can get a hold of an admin. But there's been lots of times that even at elementary schools here for the district, that something goes on, and then we just call the building principal and then say, you need to lock down. We had, let's see, I think it was at Pawnee. Anybody go to Pawnee Elementary? We had, last year it was right at dismissal for the elementary, and there was a mental subject that was out in the street in front of the elementary school, and he was threatened that he had a gun, and he was talking about all sorts of weird stuff. I mean, he was from different planets, and you could just tell that he was off his meds or hadn't had the care that he needed. Anyway, so we had to lock down at dismissal, And then we called for a couple other officers to come over and ended up taking the guy into custody. But in that situation, we had to make the call to lock the building down. But that's another good example of why we locked down, why we locked the building down, because you don't know what that guy's gonna do at all until we got him in custody. And it's the same thing, like if you guys are helping out at sporting events or at doctor's offices or wherever you go, until the scene is secure, until law enforcement's got it locked down, unless you're specifically asked by a police officer to help out, then you just need to stay in your cover and concealment and where you're at. So, oh, I know what I was gonna say. So hopefully it never happens, but, and if you remember, don't answer it. You guys are getting cover and concealment, getting there. What is the police officer's role? What should the police officer do immediately when there's shots fired? And we're talking about this so that if we're working together at a sporting event and something happens, you guys are gonna know exactly what's going on, what I'm doing. And it's no different if you're at West or if you're at South. This is exactly what the police in a shooting situation. This is what we're trained to do. And so, what are we gonna be doing?
Running toward the danger.
Yeah, that is absolute. There's no questions asked. If there at Shawnee Mission East when I'm there, if there's rounds that are getting shot off, and you say, oh, what's Tony going to do? Tony's going right to the sound of the shots. Period. Because that's the only way, based on our training, that we can minimize the loss of life, is to get in there. Well, I remember years ago, our chief called all the officers together and looked us all right in the eye and said, this is what's expected of you. If there's an active shooter situation going on in the building, you need to go straight toward the threat, no questions asked. And he looked at us all and said, if you cannot or don't think that you can do that, then no shame, then you need to find a different job, because that's what's expected. And so in our meeting, everybody took an oath that if that happens, then we're going straight to where the shots are being fired, which kind of leads to, and it's been all over the news at Uvalde. It took those officers, and everywhere you look at on the media, they've got 77 on the screen, which is not. Has anybody seen the coverage on that? What's the 77 that they keep? That's how long it took for the officers, over an hour, when they know that there's shots fired, to go to the threat, which is absolutely against our training. It's absolutely not acceptable. And if you see some of the video, you see those officers, they've got cover and they've got concealment. They're right at a corner of a hallway where they've got bricks and rocks that they're behind, so they've got both cover and concealment. And then they've also got ballistic shields that are out with windows on it that they could look through down the hallways. And I don't want to second guess another officer, but that's out there for everybody to see. Well, we can't do that. Whether we've got shields or not, then we're zigzagging and we're going as quick as we can to where the threat is. And I've talked to my wife, I've talked to my kids and everybody. They know that if something happens, that's what we got to do. Period. So if you're at a situation like that, then you know there's somebody that's going toward the shots. And that's the hardest thing for us as law enforcement is to pinpoint where we're going. Because you can hear, but sometimes things, sounds bounce off stuff, and if you just hear like one, it's already really noisy in the football stadium, and it's hard to distinguish. So, but we got to do as best we can to get to the incident. So
I know we gotta get you out of here, so I'm gonna let them.
holy Jiminy!
Yeah,
No
yeah.
way! Yeah, I gotta leave at 3:30.
If y'all have questions, now's the time to ask. So take a couple minutes and throw some questions out. If you don't have any, I've got one, but I'll let you guys ask them first.
So, I think you briefly talked about this, like,
Do
in
what?
the beginning. You briefly talked about this in the beginning,
Mhm.
but I was wondering, because you were talking about, like, when we have a uniform on, it's, like, similar to you, so what is our responsibility in that situation?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm glad you brought that up because we talked about this last time we were here, but because the uniform distinguishes you differently, then there's gonna be people that are looking after the situation is calmed down. There's gonna be people that are looking towards somebody for help. And that help can look like a whole bunch of different things. I don't know how much training they have in the first aid and
Whole crap ton.
Yeah.
They're all Stop the Bleed certified. They're all first aid certified.
yeah, so it's gonna look, and I don't know what that looks like for you, but you've been, because you're in this class, but because you have servant's heart, because this might be the direction that you're headed, that could be a time for you to step up, and once things are calmed down, to lend a hand to the athletic director or to the athletic trainers. If there's first aid that needs to be helped with, then somebody's gonna be could be looking around for help, and your uniform may be the first thing that they see, and they're gonna be, give me some help. And that's why talking about and practicing and just being ready, there's no way that we can prepare for everything, but I know that if somebody's gonna need help, that I'm of the mentality that I'm not just gonna lay there. Even when you get into a situation where somebody needs help, then don't lay there. Even if it's not the right answer, as long as you are helping. Example, we've learned CPR and we've gone through CPR, and I've taught CPR for years, and people always stress out about well, what if I don't give the right amount of compressions, or what if they're not at the right depth, or something like that. Well, there's laws, Good Samaritan laws, that protect us if we don't do stuff perfect. The whole point is to be flowing, is to be actually moving, is to be actually doing something. And situations like that, when they come up, the leaders come to the rise to the top. Meaning, if there's stuff to be done, we don't just lay there. We help hand. You already just innately, because your uniform is different, because you show out, you've already got people that are looking for it. So walk through that. I don't know what it looks like, but it's going to be something, and you have permission to do something. Does that make sense? Okay.
What else you got?
Say it was like not in an open field, like a football field, say it was in a gym.
Yep.
Is the protocol just like evacuate or what?
You talking about with
like a basketball gym, if there was like a shooter in a basketball gym.
Yeah.
You just evacuate there?
well,
Or-
yes and no. And it's good because that we talk about this stuff because typically toward the end of when I wrap up, I encourage you guys, no matter where you're at, to role play situations. Like us as police officers, we role play stuff all the time. What if a kid shows up and has got a gun in his book bag? Or what if somebody's right in the middle of shooting methamphetamine in one of the bathrooms? I mean, we go through and we try to brainstorm and role play as much stuff. And I've been in this room enough times that if the shooter is in the room, yes, I'm gonna go right for the shooter. But I also know, because I've role played it in my head, that I'm gonna be, if I didn't have my gun and then I'm throwing stuff at them. That at least at the Aux Gym at Shawnee Mission East, there are rooms that are on the gym that my happy butt's gonna get into. So when you ask that question, then yes, you're gonna get to cover and concealment, you're gonna get to evacuate, but what if you can't?
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that you're gonna be encouraged to role play that stuff, what that looks like.
Yeah.
Is it hand to hand? Is it throwing stuff? There's staplers and dum-dums or whatever that you can throw at a shooter. And a lot of times shooters are so locked into a loop, we call it a loop, that they're just look, shoot, stuff like that. If something breaks that loop, like they're stopped, and then they get whacked in the side of the head with a stapler or something like that, then they're out of that loop. And then they've got to start all the way back over to start that loop again, which gives pause and could give somebody an opportunity to step out and save lives. So yes, evacuate. But if you don't know where to go, what are you supposed to do? But you've got to do something. You can't just lay there. If you guys hear nothing, if you absorb nothing more than you can't lay there, then us talking is a success.
Would you ever face repercussion? Let's say you're the brave one and take down, say, a shooter.
Mhm.
Would you face any sort of repercussion? Let's say like stab them. Would you get any sort of trouble, issues?
Yeah. So that's a good question. So for us as law enforcement, we have they look like stairs that are steps that if somebody is not doing what we say as a police officer, it's just verbal, it's a passive aggressive, then the top step for us is deadly force. So for us, we can't go from somebody that's just being passive all the way up to deadly force. So all that to say, if somebody's got a knife and you're faced off against somebody with a knife, then yes, you can use a knife. If somebody has got papers and you've got a knife, you can't. That doesn't work. But if somebody's got a gun and the only thing that you've got is a chair, that chair can be used as deadly force. So whatever force you're met with, you can use equal to lower force than. Does that make sense? So I mean, police officers used to carry these big, long, metal flashlights. They weren't just the small LED flashlights that we have now. Well, some police officers got into stressful situations like bar fights, and, there's people swinging and stuff like that. Well, a police officer can't, if somebody's trying to stop a fight, we can't use a weapon that's up here that steps above. And there's been a lot of police officers that got in trouble because they hit somebody to try to stop a fight, and somebody got hurt, and it was viewed as deadly force, and they got sued like crazy. So now you don't see all these big long flashlights that are carried by police officers. But the answer to your question is, if you're at or below, then you're fine.
Officer Warren, I appreciate your time. We gotta get you out of here.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.